m. After you labeled your point and your slope, you wrote y equals mx plus b. You solved for b, which is y-intercept. Then you plugged slope and y-intercept back into the formula. So today's going to be a little bit different because you're given 2 points. But we've already learned in this class how to find the slope given 2 points. So the only thing that's going to be different is you have to find the slope first. Once you find the slope, then you can use one of your points and the slope to write an equation. So the way we're going to do is we're going to go over some examples. Now when you get the worksheet, the way I want you to solve it out, I want you to go through each problem first and find the slope. In other words, don't do the whole problem. Just find the slope first and then go back through, finish the rest of the steps. I think it's going to be better that way. Here's the first example. See if I can make it a little bit bigger. It says, write the slope-intercept equation for the line that passes through those 2 points. So 5, 1 and 8, 10. So in other words, if you were to draw a line between those 2 points, what would the equation for that line be? That's what we're going to solve for. So who can tell me how you find the slope given 2 points? Let me ask Corey, because I bet you he knows, even though he wasn't here last semester. I'm pretty sure he knows how to find the slope given 2 points. Just forget about what the question's asking right now. If I were to give you 2 points, how would you find the slope?
No pressure.
Anyway, I'm sure he knows because he was showing me some stuff last week. Okay, rise over run.
That's what I was going to say. Plot the 2 points and then rise over run.
Oh, you could plot them on a graph, yeah, and you could figure out rise over run, but what's the equation? I don't mind if you guys do it that way. What's the equation for slope?
Isn't it like you subtract?
Since it's rise over 1, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
It's the same equation.
Again, everybody needs to be writing this down. I'm going to label my point x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, that way I can easily plug this stuff in. So again, we're doing the first step. We're finding the slope given the points. Okay, so notice that when I label these, y2 is 10, right? So in place of y2, I'm going to put a 10, and remember I told you always put it in parentheses first. y1 is 1, so I'm going to replace y1, not with 10, but with 1. Okay? What is x2? Somebody tell me.
8.
Thank you. 8. I labeled it right there. Thank you. x1 is 5. I'm going to replace x1 with 5. Now I made the first one easy because it's just a bunch of positive numbers. There's no subtracting and negative. Okay? So, what's 10 minus 1?
9.
8 minus 5?
3.
So the slope is?
1/3.
No, not 1/3.
9 over 3. But simplified.
No, it simplifies to 3.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
I'm tired today.
No. Listen. If 3 was on top and 9 was on the bottom, you'd be correct. It'd be 1/3, but it's 3. So we've done the first step. Again, when I give you the worksheet, please just do this for every single one. Okay? I know everyone in here is capable of labeling each point x1, y1, x2, y2. I know everyone is capable of writing this equation. I know everyone is capable of plugging these numbers in and doing subtraction.
Oh, wait. That's easy.
Use this for now.
9 will be
And simplifying it. Okay. So guess what? Now we've actually turned this into a problem like we did last week because we have a point that we've already labeled x1, y1, and we have a slope. So step 2 should be done. Now I will say this, guys. I hate sometimes when there's more than one way to do a problem just because you can get confused, but I will tell you this. It actually won't matter which point you use to solve for b. You're going to get the same answer. Now just for consistency, if you want to be consistent, just always use the first point since it's labeled x1, y1. Just throwing that out there. All right, right line equation. That's what he just said. So we're going to write the same equation we did on Thursday and Friday. Then we're going to plug in those values, okay? Now again, I told you you could use either point, but since we already labeled this x1, y1, we'll replace y with 1. Okay? M is the number we solved for, and that was 3. So plug in 3 for M. And then the x value is the first x value, 5. So I'm going to replace it with 5. Correct, thank you. There, you do not have a b. That's what we're solving for, so that's our next step. All right, so we got 1 equals 3 times 5 is 15 plus b. How do you solve for b now? You subtract what? Subtract what?
15.
15 from 1.
Negative 14. Nothing history today.
Good.
I worked so late last night.
All right, now that we got b equals negative 15, negative 14, sorry. Remember, when you, for the final step, you plug in m and b into the equation. Remember, you leave x and y alone. So it's going to be y equals the slope that we found, which is 3x. And then you could put plus negative 14, right? But we know that's just going to turn minus 14. And that's how you find the equation for the line in slope-intercept form given 2 points. One of the ways, right? You could do it his way, which is you'd still have to find the slope, and then you could use point slope form, which we'll talk about later. You could use point slope form and then distribute and figure it out that way too. Usually for every math problem there's more than one way to do it. Any questions on this first example? Okay, we got 5 total. All right, again, you are going to label your points x1 and y1. This is the same problem except 2 different points. I'm going to label the first point x1, y1 like I did on the last example. I'm going to label the second point x2, y2. Now that we've done it, what's this equation for the slope? Slope. M equals what? We just did this.
M equals mx.
Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Right, rise over run. Sure. Okay, let me differentiate between the two. I understand what you guys are saying. The equation for a line, okay, so the equation for a line is y equals mx plus b. The equation for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Why? Because it's the change in y over the change in x, which is rise over run. So yes, it is rise over run, okay? The y2 minus y1 is your rise. The x2 minus x1 is your run. All right. So let's plug this stuff in. Y2 is negative 6. Y1 is negative 4. Now notice you are subtracting a negative. That means you're adding. X2, 8. Okay, so I'm going to replace x2 with 8. x1. X1, yeah, that was y2. That's all right. X1, negative 2. Okay, so we did y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so we need to do some simplification. So anytime you subtract a negative, it becomes a positive, and it happens twice. It happens twice in this example. So both of these are going to become positive. Other than that, I'm not going to change anything on the top. So negative 6 plus 4 on top, and 8 plus 2 on the bottom. Now let's simplify it down. What is negative 6 plus 4? No, it's not negative 10. Good, thank you. Negative 2. 8 plus 2 we know is 10. Now the question is, can negative 2 over 10 be reduced?
Yes.
Okay, good. And that's because you can divide both of these by 2, and you get negative 1/5. Good. All right. So again, step 2 should be taken care of, right? Because we already have one of our points labeled. Actually, we have both points labeled. And like I said before, you can use either point. Just use the first point. So the first point is already labeled, and we just found the slope to be, what was it? Negative 1/5. So step 2 is done. Step 3, write the equation for the line. We're going to write this so much you're going to know it like the back of your hand. Y equals mx plus b. Then we're going to plug these values in. Okay, so again, going back up here, plugging in negative 4 for y and negative 2 for x. Might as well just go ahead and plug in x. Okay, and then slope was negative 1/5. So we're going to plug that in for m. Plus b. All right. Next step is to solve for b. So you get negative 4. Now what's negative 1/5 times negative 2? First of all, it's a negative times a negative, so you know it's going to be positive. 2/5, right. The whole number goes on top. 1 times 2 is 2. 5 goes on the bottom. Okay, so this one involves, well, actually, what are you going to do next in order to get b by itself?
Well, yeah, you're gonna change the sign.
Well, I did not mean to do that.
How would you work, man? How did you work, man?
You're going to subtract 2/5.
It was last class. Yeah, you're right. But you're gonna add it since it's the same.
Well, we'll see. Let's just do this for now. It's going to be negative 4 minus 2 over 5 equals b. Now, in order to subtract 2/5 from 4, you got to do that, right? And then in order to add or subtract, you have to find a common what? Which would be what?
20.
No, the common denominator.
5.
5. Thank you.
Denominator's the bottom.
Yes.
God, can I go to sleep?
No, still have bread.
Listen, guys. So you're going to multiply the left fraction by 5 over 5. That way the bottom will be 5. And of course, if you multiply the bottom, you have to multiply the top. So you get negative 20 over 5 minus 2 over 5 equals b. What is negative? So just as a reminder, when you combine fractions, you only combine the numerators. The denominator is the same.
No, wait.
It will remain 5.
Isn't it? It's negative 2 over 5. Oh, never mind.
That's okay. So negative 20 minus 2 is not negative 18.
I thought that's a multiply sign.
Negative 22.
Right. Negative 22 on top and 5 on the bottom. So your b ends up being a fraction as well as your slope. So again, we found the slope to be negative 1/5 way up here, and we just found b. So for this particular lesson, you have to find both the slope and b, and then plug it into your slope equation. Final answer. Y equals, again, you're replacing the slope and your m and b, you're leaving y and x the same. So what was it?
Negative 1/5 x.
Good. Negative 1/5 x, and then replace b with what it is. Negative 22/5 minus 22 over 5. Okay, this one's going to go by real quick. You're going to see why. Actually, you might see it already. Did you notice something in this problem?
They're all
There's two
positive.
negatives. They cancel.
There's two.
Oh,
negatives.
two. The twos are the same.
Don't they cancel?
They cancel, yes. Okay, let's go ahead and just for the sake of the problem, find the slope. But once we do it, you're going to see a shortcut. And the shortcut exists whenever the x values and your points are the same. In other words, your x1 and your x2 are the same. All right, so we're going to get 8 minus negative 6 on top, right? Y2 minus y1. And negative 2 minus negative 2 on the bottom. And like he said, that'll cancel. Okay, the top is going to become 8 plus 6. The bottom will become negative 2 plus 2. So we get 14 over 0. Undefined. Now remember I told you guys in the last lesson, if the slope is undefined, you only have to worry about the x value, right? They're both negative 2. So the equation for this line is x equals negative 2. Okay, there is no y equals mx plus b when it's a vertical line. It's an exception. Just to reiterate, that's when you have an undefined slope. Okay. Any questions on that one? Remember, that's when both your x values are the same. The shortcut is it's just going to be x equals that x value. So if both of them were 5, then your equation would be x equals 5. It's that simple. The y values don't even matter, actually, if the x value is the same. Okay. This one's the opposite. In this problem, both of the y values are 7. The x values are different. We're going to go through the steps. This is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. Does anybody remember what the slope is when the y values are the same? Nope.
It's
0.
0, good. So y2 is 7, y1 is 7, right? x2 is 5, x1 is 4. So we get 0 over 1, so we get the slope is 0. Okay.
It's horizontal.
Good, it's a horizontal line. All right, now that we've found the slope, we've already got the point labeled, 4, 7. So right off the bat, we can plug in y, m, and x. So the y value is, y1 is 7. Slope is 0, we just found. X is 4. And the reason this problem is so easy is because, you know, we've got 0 times 4 is what?
0.
Okay, and then we have 0 plus b, which is what?
No.
0 plus b is b. So what is b?
7.
So b is 7. Right?
Sure.
So this one's going by quick. We've already found the slope to be 0 and b to be 7. Let's rewrite the equation for a line. Substitute what we got for slope, which was 0. Substitute what we got for b, which is 7. Now here's the final step. You need to simplify your equation. What is 0 times x?
0.
X.
1 times x is x. 0 times x is 0. And what's 0 plus 7?
7.
So when you get a slope of 0, okay, again, I'm going to explain that there's a shortcut to this one. In other words, you get a y equals something equation, in this case y equals 7, but the shortcut is if you notice that both your y values are the same, then your equation is just y equals that, y equals 7. Just like in the previous example, both the x values are the same, so you can just write x equals negative 2. Two really quick shortcuts.
What are we supposed